What if an ordinary Saturday turned into a nightmare no family could ever forget? What if a curious glance at a tablet became the start of something horrifying? This is the story every parent needs to hear. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more true stories that reveal dangers hidden in our homes. It was a chilly, rainy afternoon in Seattle, the kind of gray sky that presses down on your chest. Inside their small townhouse, 8-year-old Lucas sat on the living room floor, leaning against the couch. Beside him, his little sister, 6-year-old Sophie, was building a tower with blocks, her laughter soft but bright. Normally, these two would play outside, run around in the yard, or read storybooks together. But today, the rain had kept them inside, and the house felt unusually quiet. Their mom, Carla, was on a work call in the kitchen, trying to close a deal, her voice clipped and serious. Their dad, Ben, was at his desk in the corner, reviewing emails on his laptop. Lucas glanced at his sister. She was smiling, stacking blocks, but something tugged at him. He remembered the tablet his friend had left at their house last week, a device he wasn't supposed to touch without permission. Normally, Lucas obeyed the rules, but curiosity, that uninvited guest, nudged him. "Sophie, do you want to see something?" he whispered, holding the tablet he had hidden behind the couch. Her eyes lit up. "Yes," she said, clapping. He tapped the screen. At first it was just cartoons. Safe, colorful, funny. Sophie giggled. But then Lucas swiped too quickly. Something else appeared, a video not meant for children. Adults doing things neither of them understood. Lucas's stomach twisted. He looked at Sophie. What is that?" she asked, tilting her head. I don't know," Lucas admitted. His heart raced, but he didn't want Sophie to be scared. "Maybe it's for older kids?" She nodded, trusting him. And that was the danger. They stayed. The screen glowed in the dim room. The images became more uncomfortable, more confusing. Sophie started frowning, her blocks forgotten. Lucas felt a lump in his throat. He knew this was wrong, but he didn't stop it. He didn't want to admit he was scared. Minutes passed. The world outside continued to drizzle quietly, unaware of what was happening inside. Lucas swiped again, the video changing to something even darker. Sophie clutched her arms to her chest. Her small face twisted in confusion. It feels weird," she whispered. "It's okay," Lucas said, though his voice wavered. "We're just looking. It's nothing." But both of them knew it wasn't nothing. Silence settled over the room, heavy and suffocating, and neither child knew how to tell their parents, who were wrapped up in work, how quickly curiosity had led them into a place no child should be. Have you ever seen your child hesitate, pause, and then keep looking at something they shouldn't? That pause is the beginning of a storm. And for Lucas and Sophie, the storm had just begun. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the tablet. Lucas sat frozen, fingers hovering over the screen, while Sophie's small hand gripped his arm. Her trust was absolute, and it was that trust that made the weight of what they were seeing unbearable. I don't like this," Sophie whispered, her voice trembling. "I know," Lucas replied, swallowing hard. I didn't mean for it to be like this." But his words didn't fix the twisting pit in his stomach. He didn't know how to stop it without making it worse. The video on the screen was wrong in ways they couldn't fully understand, but they felt it in their chests, in the tightness in their throats. Lucas looked at Sophie's eyes. They were wide, confused, and a little scared. He wanted to tell her it was just pretend, that it wasn't real, but deep down, they both knew it was something they shouldn't have seen. Outside, rain tapped steadily against the windows, a rhythm that now felt mocking, as if the world itself knew the innocence of these two children had just been violated. Lucas's throat was dry. His heart hammered in his chest. Every instinct screamed to turn off the tablet, to hide it, to forget this ever happened. But they were too scared, too ashamed, too frozen. I think we should stop, Sophie said, clutching him tighter. Yeah, maybe. Lucas fumbled with the device. But before he could press anything, another video appeared. The algorithm didn't care about age. It didn't ask for permission. It just showed. And now the content was worse, darker, even more confusing. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Lucas, why are they doing that? I don't know, Sophie. I really don't know, Lucas said, voice breaking. They didn't hear the front door open. Their grandmother, who had quietly come to check on them, saw the scene unfold. Her face went pale. The tablet, the children frozen in shock, the whispered questions. It all hit her at once. Without a word, she moved forward, gently but firmly, taking the tablet from Lucas's hands. She scrolled through the history, her breath shaking, and then sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face. Her sobs filled the house, echoing in every corner. Hearing the cries, their mother, Carla, rushed in from the kitchen, her headset forgotten, and Ben appeared from the study. Both froze, trying to comprehend the scene before them. Two frightened children, a tablet lying between them, and a grandmother devastated by what she had found. What? What happened? Carla asked, voice trembling. Lucas couldn't answer. Sophie clung to him, too scared to speak. Their silence was louder than any explanation, and in that moment the truth was undeniable. A single moment of curiosity had led them into a world they weren't ready for, and no adult had been paying attention. Parents, take note. It only takes a second, a single swipe, for a child's world to shift. And when it does, silence and fear replace the laughter and trust you thought was safe inside your home. That evening, Lucas and Sophie couldn't sleep. Lights on, eyes wide, hearts racing. They felt the weight of the unknown. And the parents? Guilt, confusion, and helplessness set in. How could they have missed this? How could a simple tablet have caused such pain? They didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of their journey toward understanding, recovery, and the slow rebuilding of trust. The next morning, the house was heavy with silence. Lucas and Sophie moved through it like ghosts, small, tentative steps, avoiding the kitchen, the living room, anywhere they might be reminded of what had happened the night before. Carla and Ben sat at the kitchen table, faces pale, hands gripping mugs they weren't drinking from. Words failed them. How do you even begin to explain a moment of innocence shattered? Lucas clutched a blanket around his shoulders as Sophie held his hand. Do you think Mom and Dad are mad at us? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Barely. Lucas shook his head, though he felt the knot of fear in his stomach. No, I don't think they're mad. I think they're worried. Carla finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. Lucas, Sophie, we need to talk. Not to scold you, not to make you feel worse, but to understand. Can you tell me what happened? Sophie hesitated, tears brimming. Lucas squeezed her hand, nodding slightly. We saw things we shouldn't have, he said. I showed Sophie. I thought it was okay, just a little curiosity, but then his voice broke. It got scary. Carla nodded slowly, understanding the weight of every word. You were curious. That's normal, but curiosity doesn't always keep you safe. And it's okay to feel scared. It's okay to say no, Ben, who had been silent, leaned forward. "We're not here to punish. We're here to protect. But first, we have to understand. And then, we fix it together." The children listened, trembling, as their parents laid out a plan. No more unsupervised tablet time, safe zones in the house, a promise to check in daily, to speak openly about what they might see online or in their friends' games. But it wasn't just rules, it was trust being rebuilt. Still, Lucas and Sophie felt the weight of what they had already seen. Even with their parents' guidance, the images lingered in their minds, shadows that followed them around corners, in quiet moments, in sleep. Playtime was quieter, laughter more cautious, and every screen sparked a flicker of panic. Carla suggested therapy. "A professional can help you both understand your feelings and how to cope with what's happened," she said. "And it will help us understand, too, so we can make the house safe again, for all of us." That day, the children met a counselor who specialized in children exposed to inappropriate content. At first, they were silent, eyes downcast. Every word felt dangerous, as if speaking aloud would make the memories worse. But the counselor was patient, gentle, never judging. "You saw something confusing," she said softly, "and it scared you. That's okay, but you're not alone, and you're not in trouble. You're learning how to protect yourself, how to feel safe, and how to trust again." Lucas's shoulders began to loosen. Sophie's grip on his hand softened. Slowly, they started to describe what they remembered. Not the graphic details, but the emotions, the fear, the confusion. For the first time, they realized that saying how they felt was safe. Back at home, Carla and Ben worked together to implement the safety rules. Tablets were stored in common areas. Time online was supervised. And nightly, they began a small ritual, an honest check-in where Lucas and Sophie could talk about anything they encountered, questions answered calmly, without judgment or panic. Parents watching this, if your child has had a moment like this, even a brief encounter with inappropriate content, it matters how you respond. Panic or punishment only deepens the shame and fear. Open conversation, gentle guidance, and presence are what begin the healing. Even as the house returned to its routines, the shadow of yesterday lingered. But step by step, the children were learning they weren't powerless, they weren't alone, and their curiosity didn't have to lead them into danger again. Even with the new rules in place, the tension in the house lingered. Lucas and Sophie tiptoed around, hesitant to pick up toys or even speak too loudly. The tablet, once a source of entertainment, now lay untouched in a drawer, a silent reminder of what had happened. Carla noticed how the smallest sounds made Sophie flinch, and Lucas would freeze mid-step, as if expecting the shadows from the videos to leap out at him. One afternoon, Carla suggested a different kind of distraction. "Let's do something together," she said, spreading out a large sheet of paper on the living room floor. "We'll draw." Whatever comes to mind. No rules, no screens. Lucas and Sophie sat reluctantly, pencils in hand. At first, the lines were shaky, colors uneven. But gradually, the walls they had built around themselves began to crumble. Sophie drew a small house with a bright sun. Lucas sketched a tree with birds. Each stroke seemed to pull a little weight off their shoulders. Carla watched them silently, remembering how just days ago these same pencils had sat untouched, ignored. "You're doing really well," she said gently. "See, it's okay to feel safe here. You're in charge of this space." Meanwhile, Ben had begun to take a more active role in supervising online time. He set up parental controls, bookmarked educational videos, and sat with the children whenever they used the tablet. But he didn't hover. He offered guidance and presence, giving them freedom while keeping them protected. Despite these measures, there were still moments of fear. Sophie would sometimes cry quietly in her room after seeing a shadow outside her window or hearing a sudden noise. Lucas would sometimes wake up at night, heart racing, the images from the videos still haunting him. Carla and Ben reassured them, stayed with them when needed, and slowly the nighttime panic began to ease. One day, Carla noticed Lucas quietly watching a nature video on the tablet. She approached, kneeling beside him. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. Lucas shook his head, eyes fixed on the screen. But Carla didn't push. Instead, she stayed there, letting him feel safe. It wasn't long before he glanced at her and whispered, "I think I can handle it." Sophie, overhearing, peeked out from the corner of the room. She nodded slowly, a tiny smile breaking through the fear. It was a small victory, but a significant one. At night, the family began a ritual of sharing one thing that scared them during the day and one thing that made them happy. No judgment, no interruptions, just listening. Slowly, laughter returned, not loud and careless, but cautious and soft, like tentative steps toward safety. Carla and Ben also scheduled sessions with the counselor for themselves. They learned how to recognize early signs of distress, how to respond calmly, and how to rebuild trust without fear. It was a slow process, but each day the children felt more in control of their emotions, their curiosity, and their sense of safety. Parents, if you're watching this, recovery isn't instant. The trauma from witnessing inappropriate content can linger even after rules are set. But presence, patience, and consistent support can guide your child back to a place where they feel safe and empowered. By the end of the week, Lucas and Sophie were exploring the backyard together, tentative laughter echoing in the air. The tablet remained in the drawer, but the shadows it had cast were slowly receding, replaced with color, imagination, and the knowledge that they could trust their parents to protect them. The following morning, the air in the house felt lighter, but Carla and Ben knew the children's healing was still fragile. They prepared breakfast together, involving Lucas and Sophie in small tasks, stirring batter, setting the table, counting eggs. The children's small achievements became tiny victories, moments of normalcy amid the lingering unease. After breakfast, Ben suggested a walk to the nearby park. "Fresh air might do us all some good," he said. Lucas hesitated, glancing at Sophie, who was already tugging at his sleeve. Carla followed, keeping a careful eye on the route, knowing how quickly fear could return. At the park, the children cautiously explored the swings and slides, sometimes returning to Carla or Ben for reassurance. The simple rhythm of pushing Lucas on the swing, Sophie climbing the jungle gym, began to rebuild a sense of trust in the world around them. The trauma from the tablet still lingered, but slowly they were learning to separate imagination from the danger they had seen online. That afternoon, Carla introduced a new exercise she had learned from the counselor, the Safe Space Journal. Each child had a notebook where they could write or draw anything they felt, fear, joy, questions, or stories. "This is your space," Carla said. "Nothing you write will be judged." "It's just for you," Lucas hesitated at first, pencil hovering above the paper, but Sophie plunged in immediately, drawing colorful suns and smiling trees. Lucas eventually followed, sketching a small spaceship flying through a starry sky. For the first time in days, the siblings' creativity was untethered from fear. Later, Ben addressed the topic that had caused the most damage, the tablet and the inappropriate videos. "I know what you saw scared you," he said gently, "but you are not alone. It wasn't your fault, and we're here to keep you safe. From now on, anything you want to explore online, we'll do together." Lucas looked at his father, a mixture of relief and uncertainty in his eyes. "So, we won't get tricked again?" he asked. "No," Ben replied. "We'll make sure it never happens again." Carla noticed the weight beginning to lift from Sophie's shoulders. The child's laughter returned in fits and starts, no longer forced, but genuine. It was a reminder that healing is gradual, that children adapt when given security, guidance, and patience. That evening, the family sat down for dinner, with no devices nearby. They shared small victories of the day. Sophie had climbed the jungle gym without hesitation. Lucas had finished his journal page. Carla and Ben responded with encouragement, never dismissing even the smallest accomplishment. The night routine became intentional. Bedtime stories were read aloud, discussions about feelings followed, and reassurance offered freely. The tablet remained locked away, no temptations allowed, and gradually the children began to separate curiosity from danger. Parents watching this, trauma doesn't vanish immediately. A single exposure to inappropriate content can unsettle a child in ways adults often underestimate. But consistent communication, structured routines, and shared activities help rebuild confidence and a sense of safety. By the end of the week, Lucas and Sophie were playing board games together, giggling without fear of the shadows that had once haunted them. Each small step reinforced the truth. With guidance and love, children can reclaim innocence that was nearly stolen. By the start of the next week, Carla and Ben noticed a remarkable shift in Lucas and Sophie. The house, once heavy with fear and silence, now carried faint echoes of laughter. It was cautious, tentative at first, but real. The siblings were learning to reconnect with each other and with their parents, discovering that the world could feel safe again, even after what they had witnessed on that tablet. Carla introduced a new evening ritual, circle time. Every night, before bed, the family gathered in the living room. Each person shared one thing that made them happy that day, one thing that worried them, and one thing they were curious about. The emphasis was on honesty and listening without judgment. Lucas hesitated the first night. I'm still scared sometimes," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "That's okay," Carla said, holding his hand. "It's normal to feel scared after what happened. What matters is that we're here, together, and we'll face it as a family," Sophie chimed in, smiling shyly. "I liked the swings today." "It was fun," Ben laughed. "See? Small joys can remind us of safety." As weeks passed, therapy sessions continued. Lucas began to open up more, discussing his feelings without fear of judgment. Sophie, guided gently through play therapy, expressed her anxieties through drawing, coloring scenes of their home, the park, and imaginary worlds. Each picture became a bridge between fear and trust, a way to process what had been confusing and traumatic. Carla and Ben maintained strict boundaries on screen time. The tablet, once a symbol of danger, was now locked in a secure drawer. Any exploration of technology happened only with adult guidance. Slowly, the children's curiosity returned, tempered by caution and education about safe online habits. One afternoon, as Lucas and Sophie built a fort together in the living room, Carla watched them and felt a surge of relief. The children laughed freely, coaxing each other through the tunnels of blankets, no longer overshadowed by the images that had once frightened them. She realized that healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about creating new memories strong enough to outweigh it. That night, during their circle time, Lucas spoke with unexpected confidence. "I know now I can say no," he said. "And Sophie can too. And we can tell you if something is scary." Sophie nodded vigorously. "Yes, and we can play safely, and it's okay to ask questions." Carla and Ben exchanged glances, hearts heavy with relief. The children were reclaiming their innocence, not by ignoring what had happened, but by learning to navigate the world safely. Parents watching, this is the takeaway. A single exposure to harmful content can leave deep scars, but with presence, guidance, and love, children can heal. Open conversations, shared routines, and safe boundaries are not just protective, they are empowering. As the lights dimmed that night, Carla whispered to Ben, "I think we've found our family again." Ben smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "Yes, and this time we won't let anything take them from us. Not curiosity, not screens, nothing." Lucas and Sophie fell asleep with a sense of security they hadn't felt in days, dreaming of forts, playgrounds, and a world where laughter was stronger than fear. Their story, while painful, became one of resilience. It's a reminder that even after shadows enter a child's world, love, guidance, and vigilance can restore light. Parents, remember, never underestimate the small, everyday conversations. Never leave a screen unsupervised. And always, always listen before curiosity turns into fear. This story didn't end in silence. It ended in safety, growth, and the quiet power of family. Power